So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce today's first speaker, Tony Incalcaterra, Senior Vice President with Ipsos's Audience Measurement Team. Tony, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to present our sort of annual look at travel habits, and Jesse and I appropriately dressed for the occasion. So we're going to turn off the webcam so you can spend more time looking at the presentation, but we'll get started right now. So today we're going to present a number of insights that are really coming from a group of sources that are collected from our ongoing affluent study, along with information that we collect as part of our quarterly barometer series. So our affluent study is part of Ipsos's 49-country global effort that really provides clients with a total understanding of the top consumers, who they are, what they buy, what they use, how they think, and ultimately how you can reach them and how you can speak to them in the most persuasive way, I should say. We're going to start today by talking about the fact that as we look at the travel industry, analysts are predicting that despite seeing really enormous increases in air passenger traffic that have surpassed pre-pandemic levels, that this concept of vengeance spending that we saw right after the pandemic ended, this spending because they saved up money for a couple of years and they needed to get out, that is starting to wind down. It's really likely coming to an end for the general public, particularly as the general public is dealing with rising prices and inflation. Couple that, or in addition, when we look at business travel, is something that airlines and hotels really rely on heavily. That just simply hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. Prior to the pandemic itself, it took an airline sometimes 3 to 4 leisure passengers just to make up for the revenue that might be lost on one single business traveler. Now, according to the research that we've conducted, only half of employed affluents say their companies are permitting business travel at pre-pandemic levels. So when we look at that with the reduced revenue that airlines are getting per seat or hotels per room, what it really does do is it translates to very significant challenges for the travel industry in 2023. But thankfully, there is a bright light in the horizon. One of the elements of the market that is expected to spend big this year are what we call premium leisure travelers. So this is the affluent component of the travel. And over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to cover a lot of material, as we always do in these webinars. We pack a lot in. We've organized today's session into 8 areas. First, we're going to talk about some essential information about travel, affluent travel. Then we're going to look at how 2023 is going to differ from 2022. From there, we'll focus specifically on summer travel. We'll give you, a real sense of the who, what, where, etc. From that point, my colleague Jesse is going to give you a look at the motivations, attitudes that affluents have about travel, before spending some time on what's important to affluents when it comes to accommodations. I'll come back after Jesse to then discuss the various vacation styles that we see, before we're going to get into a conversation about the personal capital that comes from travel experiences. So there are really 3 themes that I'm hoping that come across today. And the first is really that affluents are still very much in the mood to get away from their very busy lives. Secondly, that despite inflation and rising prices, the financial insulation that we always talk about affluents having continues to afford for them to pursue that passion for travel. And third, we believe that there's a shift among the generations about what travel means to them and why it's important. So let's get started by looking at some overall statistics about affluent travel. I always personally like to start with a big number. And in this case, it's really big. Affluent households spend $367 billion on travel-related expenses in the past 12 months. And that amounts to a bit more than $10,000 per affluent household annually. Now, to put that in perspective, if you think about the average non-affluent household, they're only spending in total on everything that they spend $47,000 annually. So the amount that affluent households are spending just on travel is equivalent to what the average non-affluent household spends on everything for a 3-month period. That's why it's such a huge number. Now, in the past year, 8 in 10 affluents took at least one domestic trip, including 66% of them who took a trip by commercial air to one or more destinations. The incidence is even higher when we start to look at higher incomes, such as the ultra affluent, which we define as having a household income of $250,000 or more, and the wealthy, which is defined as having a household income of $500,000 or more. Now, 2/3 of these affluents flew to one or more domestic destinations. But it's more than just travel in the US. A large majority of affluents have a valid passport, more than 8 in 10. And in the past 12 months, we saw that foreign air travel really rebound from pandemic lows. And fully 1/3 of affluents took a trip outside the US in the last year. But looking forward, we see that 44% of affluents are saying they plan to take a trip or vacation outside the US in the next 12 months. So a big increase over what has been happening. And while all affluents have a relatively high incidence of travel experiences, we do see some subtle differences when we look at this by race and ethnicity. Black and African Americans have somewhat lower levels of travel than their Asian and white counterparts. Although some of this may be due to the fact that Black and African American affluents tend to be younger, they tend to be more concentrated among Gen Z and millennials, and for many of those people, they have not yet attained a level of financial insulation that really gives them the ability to travel more freely, plan more time off. We've also reported in the past that Black African American affluents often face discrimination, both outward and subtle, when they're traveling, which may put a damper on the desire to travel, specifically to new and unknown destinations. Now, the fact that summer is the #1 time for affluent travel should come as no surprise to any of us. But we continue to see that there's a growing appeal for off-season travel for the older generations. And this really comes down to a combination of the fact that they're less likely to have kids under the age of 18 in the household, as well as the fact that they have an increased amount of leisure time. And quite frankly, the destination choices they make often enable them to travel in those off seasons. Now, despite inflationary prices, the majority of affluents still plan to take vacation trips this summer. Not surprisingly, the younger affluents, especially those with kids under 18, are the ones who are most likely to take summer trips. Those without kids are 20 points less likely to take summer trips, which, as I just mentioned, is likely related to the fact that more than half of them prefer to travel in the off seasons of spring, fall, and winter. But that doesn't mean they're necessarily looking for bargains, as 43% of affluents tell us that they're planning to spend more money on vacation trips this summer compared to last. That is in addition to the 35% that say they're expecting to spend the same amount. So very few people are cutting back in terms of real expenditures, which is great news for the travel industry. Now, given those significant changes that we've seen over the last year, between historically high levels of inflation, rising prices, we wanted to hear directly from affluents about their travel plans and how they were going to change in 2023. And some of the themes that came up is, to be sure, many of them told us that they face facts that the higher prices our travelers are going to factor into their travel budgets and their expenditures. They're aware that airfare, accommodations, meals, and other costs are going to go up. But thankfully, most of them accept this as just part of pursuing their passion for travel. One of the things that we did see quite a bit in the open-ended responses is a significant number of people telling us that they're looking to get on the love boat, if you will, and cruise to romance. But, if I have vintage sitcoms aside, the fact is that the cruise industry has really transformed itself over the last several years. It's broadened its appeal to many different types of travelers. And from personal experience, I can emphatically say that today's cruise ships and passengers are radically different from what used to be the staid and somewhat stuffy cruises of the past. Now, with COVID clearly in the rearview mirror, at least fingers crossed that that's the case, the reality is that venturing outside the U.S. Is on the list for many affluents this summer. Despite world conflicts and other difficulties, affluents are ready to explore the world. They're looking to experience the new and exotic, and they're going to take advantage of that. And now, of course, for many, the lure of Disney is still there. Many affluents mention Disney World, Disneyland in their open-ended responses. Often with exclamation points of sort of the excitement of Super Bowl winners. Though I venture to say that their bonuses probably aren't as significant as professional football players, but nevertheless, they're planning it, whether they're planning those trips to Orlando or a cruise, Disney remains a significant draw for many affluents, particularly those with kids. Now, we've known for some time that travel really is the chance to get away from the hectic pace of affluents' everyday lives. The quest for new experiences is really unabated. You might think that after breaking free last year from post-pandemic doldrums, we might see a more sedated approach to travel. But frankly, there's still a strong desire to try something new for many affluents. And we'll talk more about that shortly. But one of the things that we did want to look at was, whether it was getting out, meeting new people, or reconnecting with family and friends, it's after the pandemic. We saw growth in the importance of, all types of experiences directly after the pandemic. Affluents were so anxious to get away from lockdowns, from limited and difficult travel, as well as the need to get past the worry about the virus. Now, this year, we're seeing those motivations come back to historical levels, which is a good sign that travel is, in fact, returning to normal for affluents. So you can see that in 2023, we're really parallel what we saw in 2018 pre-pandemic. And that, of course, brings us back to the most important travel season, which is summer. So let's take a look at affluents' travel plans for the next few months. Now, on average, affluents plan to spend almost 2 full weeks traveling between Memorial Day and Labor Day. The youngest affluents, especially those who are really just starting their careers, are planning the least amount of travel. While those boomers in early retirement or getting close to retirement are planning to spend the most time traveling this summer. Now, keep in mind that boomers and seniors are also the ones that are most likely to plan travel in the off season. So when you really look at this, the number of days these older folks plan to travel is actually even more significant. So keep that in mind as we continue to talk about who's doing what in terms of travel. Now they're going to use many modes of transportation to get there, to get and enjoy those vacations. Personal automobiles, which were crucially important during the pandemic, are now taking, they've shifted back, taking a back seat, if you will, to the commercial airlines in terms of the primary mode of travel this summer. And frankly, anybody who's been to an airport recently, knows all too well how crowded the airports are currently. Now, thankfully, given their wealth, as an escape from the crowds and frankly, recognizing the convenience of private air travel, we're seeing about 7% of affluents who are saying they plan to travel by private airplane this summer. So where are they going? Well, the majority are going to, plan to travel within the 48 contiguous states. But a little bit more than 1 in 6 affluents are really expecting to cross the Atlantic. They want to spend, some glorious time in Europe, get a feel for places that they've either been to before or have yet to get to. About 1 in 8 tell us that they're headed to a tropical paradise somewhere in Mexico, the Caribbean, or the Aloha state of Hawaii. And another 1 in 10 are telling us that instead of heading to the tropics, they're heading northward to Alaska and Canada. And approximately 5% of them are telling us that they're headed opposite from Alaska and Canada down to Central and South America. So, given all of those basics, I'm going to turn this over to Jesse, who's going to help everybody understand the motivations when it comes to affluent travel. So over to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Tony. So let's take a look at where affluents are with their attitudes on travel these days. So we asked a lot of questions where we force respondents to choose one or the other. For these kinds of ones, we're looking at, what's motivating you to go out? Is it, or what motivates you? Is it vacation time, salary, money, time, a vacation, watch and jewelry? You can tell that like vacation time, much more important to affluents overall. When we were looking at this, the median income among those who are choosing to take the extra vacation time is slightly higher, only about by like $5,000 and not really 2 weeks salary worth of extra vacation time, but it's worth it to the it's less important to their income than it would be for the salary folks. Parents are also much more likely to want the extra vacation time, and the group that seemed to want the watch more than the most over the vacation was actually male parents. So happy Father's Day to all the dads wanting their watch or jewelry out there. But they do want to go on vacation with their kids. They just want the watch. When we look at their preferences of what kind of trips they're going on, exciting vacations are obviously going to be more favored by younger affluents. There wasn't a big gender split there. The median household income on the relaxing versus an exciting vacation is about $15,000 higher for the relaxers. So more money means you want to relax and you're not looking to go and do a whole bunch of adventure travel, apparently. The staycation is really fading in popularity. When we asked, it's down to 15% now. That was about 30% last year. So people really want to get away now. It's not. I think the pandemic has really taken its toll on the people who say, yeah, I want to stop working for a week, but I'll just hang out around the house. We've done enough of that for a couple years. Next slide. When we look at their preferences on trips, the unstructured time is a little more favored to a structured itinerary, but that doesn't mean that, they want to get away from to-do lists, but they want to do touristy things, and they want to find the hidden gems. So there's a lot of planning that goes into that kind of stuff. So as my wife will so generously tell me when we're on vacation, and I want to know where we're going to that. The structured vacation is really favored by younger affluents and men. It's also parents of kids under 18 who really want the structured itineraries. That makes a lot of sense if you've tried to travel with kids recently. There was a shift in the past year. The structured vacations have dropped about 10%. So that did flip in the past year. I also want to highlight here that the big sites and touristy things are not the same thing. So when you say you want to go to Paris and do the touristy things, that's not necessarily going to the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower anymore to people. It's something that, we're starting to see. We're going to get used to that going forward. What people are considering touristy now isn't necessarily what they did 20 years ago anymore. And then when we go to the affluent mindset on travel, they're looking to better understand the world. They're looking to get the experience. They're looking to get a taste of the culture. So they want to go to the places. They don't necessarily want to immerse themselves as much. You still kind of want to be able to pull yourself back to your own reality, I guess. And then, mostly people want to spend time with their family and friends as opposed to traveling on their own. Traveling for the experiences has also increased 5% since last year. So you just want to make the point that people aren't just getting away, they want to go places and do things. Next slide, when we look at their spending type of stuff, affluents really love spending their money on traveling. As Tony said, it's over $10,000 per household. They're willing to be pampered. They don't feel guilty about it, and they're willing to splurge on it. The money's just flying out the window when they're traveling. So try and get your affluence while they're on vacation. Next slide, and this is just to wrap these attitudes up a little bit. They're looking for new places. They're looking to experience new things. They're looking for exotic stuff, but they want that feel of home. Affluents do want to make sure that they are taken care of while they're traveling. And then on the bottom part of this, you can see that, the stress kind of factors that are coming into this. So if we go to the next slide, pause here for a second. One of my favorite, forced choice questions we have is, do you prefer a hotel or an Airbnb? This is one where we think that the kind of, the split would be interesting. It kind of dives into a mindset of the traveler a little more than other cuts that we've been looking at. So if we go to the next slide, it's not that hard a choice for the affluents. Only a third are choosing the home rentals, 70% prefer their hotels. And we are about to get into why. On the next slide, you can see here, priorities are very different for the home renters versus the hotel stayers. This question's kind of asked on is this a factor that's important to you? Is this something that you enjoy or appreciate? Or is this not something you care about? It was really funny looking at this because all-inclusive for the home renters is an odd thing to see as really important to them. But when we look at that on the top two box with the factor I enjoy, appreciate, it's actually more heavily favored by the hotel stayers. When the Airbnb, where the home renters are going to go stay at a vacation rental or a hotel, they kind of want to be in an all-inclusive. That's what that means. They want the home rental for most of their vacations, but when they are going on their big trip, they're going to want to just be taken care of. But what you can see here is just a lot of the things are kind of understandable. Pet friendliness, child friendly stuff being for the home renters will make a little bit more sense in a minute. And then the rewards programs and the reputation of the hotel brand and the amenities are obviously the things that are going to be most important to the hotel stayers, as we'll see in a minute. If you go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the home renters. This is a younger group of affluents. Again, it's only 30% of the affluent population, so you get a really good break from what the average affluent is here. They do have roughly average income. It's a little lower than average. They have a fairly low, for our standards, net worth. But that's stuff that happens when you are younger. You don't have the net worth built up as much. So it is a more diverse group than the average affluence with a, it's about 34.6% non-white. It has a high proportion of Hispanic white affluence, which was interesting. About a quarter of this group speaks another language at home, which is a much higher than average. It's not really the preferred accommodation for the LGBT community. You'll see when we look at the hotel stairs, it's higher there. But it's still there. They're less likely to be married. But when we look at the parents, they are more likely to be parents, and the kids are going to be younger. They plan to travel a little bit more than average this summer. They really enjoy reading print magazines while traveling, and they're more likely to use rental vehicles, campers, boats, buses, other types of travel for their vacation. And they're most likely to have a bucket list destinations. They're more of an adventurous group than the hotel stayers, which we'll get into in a minute. But when we do ask them kind of an open-ended question of why they prefer this. So if we can go through these, Tony. They like feeling like a local. They like being immersed in their culture. They like having a washer and dryer and being able to cook for themselves. On the next one, you'll see they like being, it's a homey feel. It's more space than you get when you're on in a hotel. And also, they make a good point here of the hotel is for business travel. We'll get into that a little bit. The next, it's easier for families. This person had a family of 6. Rooms and kitchen helps for that. I won't argue with this person at all. And having to purchase 3 meals a day for 6 people is a lot, even if you're affluent. When we look at the next one, they're usually interesting and private. You're not dealing with walking through hallways or hotel lobbies in the same way. But they're also repeat customers. This guy has gone back to the same ones over and over again. The loyalty can't only be tied to hotel loyalty points. There is also loyalty to finding a place you want to go and going back there again. On the next one, it's more relaxing to this person, and this is something I think about when I go with my life, that you don't have to go to bed at the same time. You can separate in space, and you can have a breakfast when you want. There's more that you can do when you're not just in a little 1-bedroom with your partner. So let's take a look at the hotel stayers now. You can see this group is about 10 years older. Again, this is about 70% of affluents. They're not going to stray too far from the average, but obviously they're older than the home renters. It's more male skew. The household income is higher. It's about average. It's what happens when you take 70% of the group. Net worth is pretty high. It's about 100,000 over the average for total. But it is a whiter than average group. You can see fewer people, or 16% of people are speaking other languages at home, not 25%. They're more likely to be LGBT. They're more likely to be married. They're less likely to be parents of an under 18-year-old, but when they do have kids, the kids are older. They're older. It's an older group, so everything is going to kind of trend older. They are planning to travel a little less than the homestayers. They are more likely to travel in the fall. So yeah, hotels are always available. They're more likely to be going on amusement and theme park trips this summer. We'll hit on that again. And they're more likely to be the primary decision maker about their airline hotel choices for their business travel. This is the most important part for me, because the hotel stayers are, they're not just staying at hotels, they're staying at their hotels. If you're a Hilton Rewards, you're going to stay at places with Hiltons, and that's what we're kind of seeing with these people. When you get to the next slide, Tony, when we get into the reasons, I don't want to interact with strangers nor be responsible for someone else's property. It's a very fair concern for people staying at an Airbnb. You don't want to break stuff, especially if you have little kids around. Next one. This isn't my favorite one, but the aspect of hidden fees really scares people off from using home rental services, where, when you stay in a hotel, you kind of know what your fee is, and it's going to stay as that. On the next one, it's again, people are uncomfortable staying in other people's houses or apartments. They want to stay in a place that's designed for somebody traveling. That's perfectly fair. On the next one, this is the one that really kind of hits everybody, because in a hotel, I have all the services, people clean and prepare food for you. Yeah, people don't want to do that. Some people don't want to do that stuff, especially with things like business travel. You're going to want to just be in and out of the hotel. And then for the last one, this is we'll get into this a little bit more. This was interesting because this is a hotel stayer, and her points are great here. She feels uncomfortable, so when she wants to stay in a big city, she wants to stay at a well-known lit hotel with people around constantly. These are things that you learn to keep yourself safe. And then, also she had the bad experience. You don't want to stay in a place with 18 surprise cats. You go to the next slide, Tony. But we're going to hit on the safety a little bit more. So there's a few things going on with safety and race here that we kind of need to touch on. Well, we saw in the last answer that the hotel stayer was the one who was, worried about their personal safety. It's really more likely that the home renters are concerned about their personal safety when they're traveling. It's not that much more, but it is more, and it's more both in the US and abroad. We also have, if you go to the next slide, we've also been doing some other research in the barometer. So we have a question about feeling profiled and stuff. And when we looked at it for the home renters and hotel stayers, again, you're seeing that the home renters, these are not high numbers of high percentages of these people, but the home renters are feeling more, profiled or negatively stereotyped while traveling. And it's a real thing. And, for when you look at it and you see that there's more diversity and they don't necessarily speak English as much, there are things to worry about for that hotels may need to work on for making those people feel safer and more welcome. You go to the next slide. Just to show a few more differences between these groups. When we look at the place that they want to go out and explore, or a place that provides them comfort and amenities, you can see that the hotel stayers are obviously going to want the amenities more. The home renters really just want the base of which to go out and explore, which makes sense because it's, you're seeing that they're younger and more willing to go exploring on their trips. Next slide. When we look at the differences in their travels, the home renters are looking for variety, where the hotel stayers are really looking for their familiarity. The two ones in the middle I do want to note here is it was interesting to see that I don't feel comfortable going somewhere if I don't know someone who's been there before is higher among home renters. When they are willing to go to new, you can see on the one to the right of that, they are willing to go to new places. They just need some kind of assurance that it'll be fine. Just lastly on these people, they're both taking about 2 weeks of vacation this summer. And while the hotel stayers are staying about 1 day less in the summer, they do like traveling in the fall too, so just keep that in mind. But when you look at the types of trips they're going on, you can see that they're a little different. And with that, I'll send it back to Tony.
All right, thank you, Jesse. So I just want to spend a little time talking about the different types of vacation trips that affluents are planning to take this summer. So when we look at travel plans for 2023, we're essentially seeing 8 really distinct types of travel. And that ranges from trips that are, where they're going to see family and friends, to trips where they're looking for inner peace. They're looking to sort of regroup, regenerate. In terms of popularity, it runs in the upper left from friends and family vacations. Next most popular is trips that are intellectual and explorational, followed by high energy or excitement trips, and then the sort of kicking back, relaxing vacations. As I mentioned earlier, we're seeing significant numbers of affluents planning to cruise, as well as travel that's devoted to good food, good wine and spirits, things like weekends in Napa and Sonoma, as well as other places. And of course, there's a decent number of procrastinators. These are people who plan to travel this summer, but they either haven't quite decided where yet or with whom. But these may be people who are looking for spur-of-the-moment opportunities. The smallest group is what we refer to as the Zen travelers. And these are folks who are focusing on health and wellness, both physical and spiritual. So keep in mind that the average affluent is likely to incorporate 2 or more of these types of trips over the course of the summer, whether they're taking them individually or whether they're taking them in combination. So you may find cruisers who are looking to go on European cruises because they're stopping at historical sites. So they're combining the cruising and intellectual pursuits. Or you might find foodies who are hiking through remote parts of the world, possibly Southeast Asia, while they're experiencing really the joys of the local culinary offerings. They're quite different, but they're not a true segmentation in that they're not mutually exclusive and exhaustive. So let's take a quick look at these travel types. Reconnecting with friends and families is still the #1 type of summer travel. It's roughly evenly split between men and women. The race and ethnicity breakouts are fairly similar to the overall affluent population. The median age for this group is slightly older, and the median household income is the highest among the 8 groups that are planning travel this summer. 8 in 10 of these people who are planning on family and friends trips are planning to incorporate these group trips. About 30% of them are planning to go to amusement parks. And that's really not surprising given that 79% of them are parents, parents of kids under the age of 18. Slightly younger and somewhat more male are the affluent travelers who are planning trips that really focus on local culture, historical or educational trips. About 1 in 3 plan to take city tours while they're on these types of trips, and about 1 in 10 of them identify as either lesbian, gay, or bisexual. And not surprisingly, the high energy travelers are younger. Most of them are planning to take explorational trips, such as road trips, camping, outdoor, nature trips, including some of them, planning with non-traditional accommodations. Now, roughly 2/3 of them are planning trips that include biking, climbing, trekking, and sports-focused trips. So you can see how different these might be from just pure explorational or intellectual pursuit trips. Obviously, we've often talked about, Jesse just mentioned earlier, affluents lead very hectic lives. They always seem to be doing more than one thing at a time. And they're often telling us that they're looking to simplify their lives. So it's really not surprising to see a significant number of these people looking to adopt the mantra of borrow from Kenny Chesney: no shoes, no shirts, no problem. These are kickback trips where they're relaxing. So the vast majority of these trips really include time in the sun, relaxing on a beach, perhaps having a margarita or a Mai Tai. 1 in 3 of them are planning what we call escape vacations, and those are vacations that where they're looking to disconnect and unwind. Now, I talk a lot about cruising. People, friends and colleagues are probably tired of hearing me talk about cruising. But it may surprise many people that many of, or one of the youngest groups in terms of travel types are the cruisers. Those people who are planning to either take ocean cruises or river cruises. And that's really because cruise travel has morphed into active family travel opportunities. And this is really with the introduction of megaships that they incorporate amenities that really cater to young families, particularly young families with kids. There's an emphasis on these ships on things like water slides, go-karts, bumper cars, zip lines, entertainment for all ages. The most popular cruise line, incidentally, for affluents is Disney, and again that shows up in those open ends. And those cruises are truly designed for younger families. Now, river cruises, on the other hand, tend to appeal more to older travelers. They tend to be smaller ships, they tend to be more sedate, and they tend to be more focused on the destinations, on getting close to the local culture as you go through, down the river. And one of the younger male skewing groups are those travelers who are looking to go to wineries, vineyards, breweries, distilleries, in addition to those who are planning culinary trips that are really focused on haute cuisine or just special cuisine. So those are trips that aren't necessarily to 5-star restaurants or Michelin-starred restaurants, but they are trips that are devoted to enjoying what specialties the area has to offer. As I mentioned, there are still affluents who haven't quite made up their mind what they're doing this summer, and tick tick, it is coming up on 4th of July pretty soon. But they're ready to travel. They just need to be hit with the right opportunity. They're our oldest group, median age of 49, and these are the people that are least likely to have kids under the age of 18. Now, attention, travel advertisers, tourism folks, these people are open to last-minute opportunities. They also have the means to afford these opportunities. So they're open to suggestion, and it's still plenty of time to get in front of them to make or to help them make those decisions about those last-minute trips. The last group and our smallest group, and it's certainly the smallest of these 8 types, these are travelers that we call Zen travelers. They're affluents who are looking to go to spa, wellness centers, resorts, or go on religious meditation and other spiritual adventures. These are trips that are skewed towards males, interestingly, and about 1 in 6 identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual. The group really is looking to sort of recharge, recenter their lives, find that inner peace in a way that helps them fulfill both their physical and spiritual, mental aspects of well-being. These are the types of trips that then help them come back into their busy lives with renewed energy, renewed perspective. So from the ethereal side of Zen travelers to the existential side, we wanted to shift gears a little and talk about an observation that we've been having as we look in greater detail at some of the travel patterns. Now, for many years, we've noticed a shift in affluence as they were leaning more towards quiet wealth, the pursuit of experiences more than the accumulation of physical things. However, one of the curious things that we've been seeing, particularly among the younger generations, is an emphasis on accumulating and sharing personal experiences as a means of increasing their social currency or wealth. This is a group of people that are eschewing designer bags or luxury logos, but they're showing others how spectacular and wonderful their personal experiences are. And it seems to be the replacement for physical possessions for these people. Almost half of affluents are telling us that they're posting about their travels on social media while they're still actively traveling. Yesterday apparently was a National Selfie Day. I don't know where they come up with these things, but it was a celebration of the need for people to create and share memories of, with friends and acquaintances of, where they are, whom they're with, and what they're doing. When we look at this, the older generations are more likely to say they're keeping their vacation experiences more personal and private, whereas the younger generations are becoming more attuned to sharing those experiences with others through social media. It's increasingly important to them that others see where they've been and what they've been doing. And in many ways, we see these as, these badges as replacements for, older forms of status. So it's less about flashing a Louis Vuitton bag or a Rolex watch, and more about capturing the perfect selfie, of you standing in front of a what I'll call a jealousy-inducing location or a cultural site. It's a means of improving your status, and quite honestly, placing to ego. When we look at this in more detail, we look at social media posters. These are the people who are posting on social media about their trips as they're taking them. We find overall that they have higher levels of, just general travel desires compared to those, who don't post while they're traveling. More than 1 in 3 of these posters are planning to travel more in the next 12 months compared to only 1 in 4 who are non-posters. 59% feel that top-of-the-line hotels are worth the extra cost, which is 14 percentage points higher than their non-posting counterparts. 61% say they're willing to spend more on leisure in the next 12 months compared to last year. And over 3/4 of them have a bucket list of travel destinations that they want to get to in their lifetime. And that's nearly 20 percentage points higher than the non-posters. Now, across the board, these individuals want to experience it all. They want to be immersed in the local culture. They want to go to all of the big sites, do the touristy things, and of course, they want to chronicle it all with their phones. For these folks, travel is not just inner-directed. It really seems to be an outward manifestation of who they've become, and it's a way to show the world of how worldly they've become. So for them, these experiences may in fact be the social currency that elevates their profile among peers. Now, I know we've shared a lot of material with you guys today. I hope you found the material interesting and useful. But before we go, we want to do a quick rundown of our travel checklist, if you will, make sure we packed everything. So there are really three big points to take away from today. The first is that travel is back. There's no doubt about it. And while spending with a vengeance is not quite as significant as it was, we do see that affluents are very much pursuing their passion for fun and relaxation. We do expect the summer travel season to be gangbusters and exciting. Things are in fact returning to normal. Affluents are excited to get out there and explore. Second, the reason travel is so intimately entwined in affluent lives is really that it's a respite from their extremely busy lives. It's the means by which they break free of the day-to-day routines. It enables them to recharge, refresh themselves, so that in the end they can pursue their careers and their everyday lives when they get back from travel. It allows them to bring travel back into better balance with work and family obligations, and it's really every bit as vital to their well-being as food and water. As a result, they're willing to spend significant amounts of money. Again, more than $10,000 per household on travel-related expenditures in the past year. Lastly, for marketers, it's really important to dig deeply into the motivations and the unique needs for these individual groups. Whether the objective of the travel is to reconnect with friends and family or to completely disconnect, we know that there are unique messages that resonate with each of these groups. Those messages will be as diverse as pampering yourself with amenities and indulgences for some, or the appeal of being the very first among your friends to be somewhere special, or to have that amazing image of you in front of a bucket list destination. Travel, we often say, has a very special place in affluent lives. And importantly, they're listening and they're waiting for your messages. So remember, 2/3 of affluents say that they are always thinking about and planning their next vacation. It's all about taking care of themselves and enabling them to be the best they can be. And speaking of which, we hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. We invite you to our next session on July 18th, which is going to focus on affluent health and wellness. So an invitation with the registration link will be available shortly. In the meantime, on behalf of Jesse, myself, and the entire Ipsos team, we want to thank you for spending time for us today. We know we've gone a little bit over. So if you do have questions, we will get back to you. I'm sorry that we took as long as we did, but have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody, and thank you for joining us.